Welcome to this session, Unpacking Freshwater's Role in Climate Change Mitigation. And welcome everyone here in the audience, and also welcome everyone online. Dear attendees of the World Water Week, dear colleagues from SIWI, BMC, GIS, PIK, UNDP, and SRC, and also dear friends and colleagues that are interested in water and climate change mitigation. This year's World Water Week is about seeing the unseen, which is exactly why we want to talk about water and mitigation. While the importance of water for adapting to climate change is seen and discussed, the key role of water for mitigation climate change, i.e. limiting global warming by reducing greenhouse gas emissions, often receives little attention. And for this reason, SIWI GIS, on behalf of the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMC, Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research, PIK, and the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, and Stockholm Resilience Centre are working on this landmark study on water and mitigation called The Essential Drop to Reach Net Zero, Unpacking Freshwater's Role in Climate Change Mitigation. And I'm happy to be here today, to be joined by leading experts, also from the Stockholm International Water Institute, SIWI, the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, and also the Stockholm Resilience Centre to discuss the role of freshwater for accelerating mitigation efforts. And with me here on stage, I have SIWI's Executive Director, Torgny Holmgren, former ambassador at the Swedish Ministry for Foreign Affairs and head of the Department for Development Policy. And also Dr. Tanja Rödiger-Wowerk, who is Deputy Director General at the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMC, and you lead the Directorate Global Health, Resilience, Equality of Opportunity. And also Dr. Line Gordon, Executive Director at the Stockholm Resilience Centre, SRC, and Professor in Sustainability Science at the University of Stockholm with a focus on sustainable food systems. A very warm welcome to all of you. The key message of the report is simple but impactful. Mitigation cannot succeed without water. Line, could you tell us, why do you come to this conclusion?
Well, first of all, we looked through all the scientific literature on this subject, and it becomes so clear that water is really the bloodstream of the Earth system. And if you think about it as a bloodstream, you really see the intricate relation between climate, water, ecosystems that we depend on so closely. So all mitigation efforts in climate, maybe not all, but lots of them are dependent on water. And simultaneously, a lot of the changes also impact, when we are mitigating climate, also impact on water. And this has consequences on downstream neighborhoods, other sectors dependent on water, etc. So it's really central to understand this intricate relationship.
Thank you. And Tanja, do you want to add something on this?
Yes, so Lina, I could not agree more. So we must consider water in the pursuit of emission reductions. And additionally, I want to make clear that mitigation cannot succeed without water. Because considering the dire state of our climate, we simply cannot afford to leave any mitigation potential untapped. And the water sector offers enormous potential there. To name few, firstly, so technical solutions to improve drinking water and wastewater management present major opportunities to reduce emissions. And for example, wastewater treatment and discharge directly account for around 12% of global methane and 4% of global nitrous oxide emissions, both more potential than carbon dioxide at trapping heat in the atmosphere. And secondly, nature-based solutions to restore and protect freshwater ecosystems can even deliver multiple benefits for people, for the environment, beyond mitigation. And for example, peatland cover only 3% of our global land area, but they contain about 30%. So this is 10 times all carbon on land, which is equivalent to 75% of all atmospheric carbon.
Thank you. And Torgny, what's your take on this?
I can start with, I totally agree with Lina and Tanya here. Freshwater definitely is an essential resource for healthy ecosystems that can store carbon. We can do today, but there is also huge potential. And with healthy freshwater ecosystems, we can also support more improved water quality, but also flood risk reduction. So I think what is needed is that we have climate smart water governance system that also can help us to both the adaptation and mitigation in the years to come.
Thank you for these interesting insights. Now I would like to dive deeper into what each of you just said. So Lina, you highlighted the fact that water and climate are inseparable in the Earth system. Could you explain for us what that means for climate change mitigation?
No, of course, it's of such an central importance. And if we think about it first from the perspective that water can impact the mitigation potential. So first of all, we can think of droughts, and that droughts can have big impact on, for example, hydropower. So hydropower being an alternative energy source, and if we have droughts, it really is, we're reducing that potential. Floods can impact on safety of dams, and some of the existing dams, we see these consequences playing out. We heard this summer in the news from France of both too hot water or too little water actually can be an issue for nuclear power plants. So that's another example of where these potential mitigation effects actually are dependent on water. Protection of forests can be seen as another mitigation possibility. But of course, if there are droughts and there are wildfires, that mitigation potential is being reduced. As exemplified also here, you can see that these are also amplified by climate change. So if we have climate change, we also reduce this possibility of having water as a source for these solutions. So what do we need to do then? Well, first we need to sort of accelerate mitigation. But when we do that, we also need to account for these potential side effects. So we need to be able to assess and account for possible side effects. And we also need to diversify mitigation strategies so that we don't put all eggs in the same basket. The other aspect is that climate also can impact on water. The possibility of having water for the solutions. So, for example, we need water withdrawal for plantations for bioenergy and carbon capture and storage. This can also, using water for these type of things can also accelerate ecosystem degradation, which is making it worse for other communities and other ecosystems. So here we also really need to look for synergies. And I know you also brought up nature-based solutions as one of the possibilities where we can see that we have many synergies together, looking for both climate solutions and solutions to water issues. Another area of lots of synergies is in the food system. We know that a transition to a more healthy diet would actually reduce the pressure both on climate and the pressure on water. So really looking for these areas where we can have synergies is a really important entry point. Yeah, I think I am there.
Thank you, Lina. And Tanya, Lina called for carbon smart and water-wise climate action. Many mitigation measures in Global South are planned and implemented through development cooperation, which is your field of work. And in your opinion, how can we achieve carbon smart and water-wise climate action in the context of international development?
Yeah. So I would like to echo Lina, because climate and development are inextricably linked together. And the impact of climate change is hitting the most vulnerable people the hardest. And this creates a need to enhance adaptation efforts. However, so we must understand that adaptation and mitigation are complementary strategies, and adaptation can only succeed in accompanied by emission reduction and transformation towards a net zero. And that transformation depends on water. This is very easy. So the BMZ, the Federal Ministry I'm talking on behalf, promotes sustainable, climate-compatible development and works together with many partners like SIWI and many others which are here on the Water Week now, to protect our climate and reduce emission to reach the goals of the Paris Agreement. And here some insights of the report are crucial. First, the report shows that is key for mitigation across sectors. As Lina explained, many climate change mitigation measures like energy transition, forests depend on and impact freshwater resources. Also, there are many synergies between mitigation and water, and that must be accounted for in planning and implementation to identify and act on these energy. And allow me to give a second example of this really interesting report. We should seize the water sector's large untapped mitigation potential. According to the latest IPCC report, to reach the 1.5-degree goal, greenhouse gas emission must peak at 2025, we all know this, and be halved on 2030. This is extremely ambitious and becomes even more from year to year. So technical solutions to improve the drinking water and wastewater management presents here a major opportunity. Improving energy efficiency of water and sanitation utilities and using renewable energies can significantly reduce in combination and increase the financial stability. And this is very in the center of our development cooperation, the financial stability of water providers, because if there's no business case, nobody will do it. It's up to the government at the end, and they cannot afford it. So, for example, in Jordan, the water sector is the largest energy consumer in the land. Can you imagine? And BMZ supports energy-efficient water management systems through institutional and human capacity development and a tailor-made management system with these utilities. And this increases energy efficiency, improves cost recovery, and reduces emissions. And the very last example, further improved wastewater management and treatment towards circular systems can reduce emissions and protect water quality and biodiversity, human health. So, for example, the BMZ supports the improvement of sustainable fecal sludge management also in Jordan by deploying technical-based upcycling solutions that reduces emissions and realizes the economic potential of sludge products like pellets, biochar, and as an alternative energy carrier and industrial fuel, industrial raw material, or compost additive for agricultural use. And we see there's a broad range of the products we can gain through these circular processes.
Thank you. Torgny, how can we best mainstream freshwater into all climate mitigation planning and action?
There are possibilities, but also risks. We know that it's very clear nowadays that water is a foundation of a number of mitigation activities in core sectors like energy and forest. But the risk, take deforestation for instance, that could lead to increased greenhouse gas emissions. We also, I think in our upcoming report also, we show that there is a risk that wetlands, rivers, oceans will become carbon emitters rather than carbon sinks. And then it's a very dangerous path we are on. And also in the water sector itself, we know that wastewater also is a emitter of greenhouse gas. So we need to be more smart also in investing in wastewater treatment. And we know that of all water used on a daily basis, 80% goes untreated into rivers, lakes, and in the ocean. And we are following closely the nationally determined contributions, the NDCs, in the COPs, etc. And we know that water is a fundamental part of many of the, at least developing countries' NDCs. And I think we should also, and I think that will come in Sharm el-Sheikh, which will be the upcoming COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, that will focus on Africa, adaptation, and water. And I think for a local government in any country, I think there is not that sharp division line between mitigation and adaptation, it's how you handle it. This morning I had a meeting with the South African Minister of Water and learned about the ongoing flooding in Durban area. When we discussed Europe the other day, it's about the quantity. Last year we had too much water in Germany and Belgium. This year, too little water. And I think here we have to look into the mitigation measures in the years to come. So it's a clear, I think we lack awareness today what role the water plays in mitigation activities specifically, but also in adaptation. And for instance, in energy, I think there are untapped sources and resources in the future for going away from fossil fuel-based for wind and solar, etc. We should look into the dependence on water when we produce energy. Farming is another example. If you listen to Professor John Cherry yesterday, when the Stockholm 2022 laureate in Stockholm Water Prize, he mentioned that we have to rethink farming to make more water-smart farming in the future. Ourselves in our institute, we are working closely with a number of organizations and governments in Africa on transforming investment in rainfall agriculture. In Africa, for instance, Africa is quite a big challenge with a growing population, how to feed that population when you cannot large-scale irrigate that continent. So I think we need also to look into the governance, how we govern this, I think to be water smart governance in the future and to build in the water aspect, both for adaptation, of course, because you depend on the water, but also for mitigation measures. And I think that is still a missing link for the awareness raising, and that we will bring to COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh.
Great, thank you. Do you want to add something, Line? I see you taking notes here.
Yeah, I think what Torgny is emphasizing also is this. We need such a speedy investment in mitigation, and it's so clear also that this is a blind spot. We haven't considered water enough yet. So I think the whole report also is highlighting this. We need to invest in mitigation, but if we do it in the wrong way, we're going to have enormous consequences on other aspects that we also need to manage at the same time. So I guess that's kind of just emphasizing what you've been saying.
That is very important. Thank you for that, Line. And thank you all for your very interesting insights into this on why mitigation cannot succeed without water. And it is also crucial we translate insights into water-wise policy action, as you mentioned. And there will be a huge water momentum at COP27, as you mentioned. And with that in mind, how can we advance water-wise climate policy at COP27? Do you want to go first, Tanja?
Yes, so I would like to summarize somehow. So first, we cannot risk endangering our water security in the pursuit of emission reduction, and therefore we must account for water in planning and implementation of mitigation measures across sectors. And probably I may give some new word into this discussion. Probably it could be helpful to use more digitalization for data transfer. We have had a talk with UNCOF this morning. So I think there are tools we are not using very well yet to exchange data for utilities, but also for agriculture, and to connect this knowledge we have, then we can use the water better than we do now. So, and second, we cannot leave any mitigation potential untapped. This becomes very clear during this world, and therefore we must seize the mitigation potential of the water sector, both in the drinking water and wastewater management and the nature-based solutions. So we both need a carbon smart and water-wise, a sustainable acceleration of our mitigation efforts, and we have to do this very quickly. So I think this is the result of the discussions this week, and we have to bring this now to other sectors.
Yes, thank you. And Line, what do you want to say when it comes to COP27?
Well, it's such a decisive moment in time. I mean, I also think right now we're there's so many multiple crises that we are feeling right now. There are these moments when the world gather around one and the same area of needy transformation. And so I think we really need to take the time at COP to advance the agenda. And it also shows that this is really urgent right now.
Thank you. And Torgny, what do you look forward to at COP27, and what do you think needs to be done?
Primarily to get water into the climate governance processes. We have been working since COP15 in Copenhagen to get awareness and to get water on the agenda of the COPs. Last year in Glasgow, I think we get the stepping stone because we arranged the water pavilion, which in the heartland of the negotiators, at least to raise the awareness that we know in this room that climate change is water change. It's fundamental, too little, too much water. So I think, I think so far, first level is awareness. Second, adaptation, which most governments in the world, they deal with water and adaptation. But also the mitigation, I think that is the next part that we are also delivering and discussing also. So get that into the negotiators' mindset, but also in the discussion among the parties at the COP. I think that is so important, to get water into the climate smart processes that countries undertake for the future.
Maybe just to add also what I forgot to say,
ahead.
but the importance of finding these synergies also, because I think we tend to emphasize where there are trade-offs. But in this report, we also highlight that there are so many areas of synergies. So we need to find ways that we both addressing climate, water, ecosystems, and biodiversity crisis at the same time. And it is possible. So highlight those synergies and go for them.
Well, thank you so much for these very, very interesting insights. And if you want to learn more about water and mitigation, we invite you to have a look at the executive summary on the CV webpage ahead of COP27. And you can also find the link in the chat box or scan the QR code on site. So thank you so much for listening.